Hello, everybody. I'm here with Dr. Arenson. And
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm just fine, thank you.
Now, you took a drive down to visit with us from McNabb's Cove, is that correct?
Right.
And how did you, have you always lived in McNabb's Cove?
No,
So where are you from?
I'm from Colorado.
And can you tell me about your life as a doctor in Colorado?
Well, I arrived in Colorado for the second time in 1988, but I had been there before doing my training in pediatrics and pediatric cancer and blood.
Wow.
Back in the 70s. And then I went into the Army and went to California and eventually wound up back in Colorado, where I spent the rest of my career.
So how is it that you're in McNabb's Cove?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll try to keep it brief. So my wife and I decided to come out to Cape Breton as part of a trip to Nova Scotia. And the idea was, well, we'll go out to Cape Breton and then we'll work our way back and see Nova Scotia that way, because I really wanted to go to Cape Breton. I'd heard about it and the music and so forth, although I didn't know about the Celtic Colors Festival at the time. But we happened to be here at the right time for Canadian Thanksgiving and then subsequently the festival. And we heard about it, got tickets, went to a concert, and to make a long story short, we never made it out of Cape Breton for the rest of the vacation, except to go back to Halifax to fly back to Colorado. And so then we found ourselves a realtor. And the realtor, every time we came here, which we did every year after that, took us around looking at places to live. And we found this wonderful place just 2 years ago. When we were here in October, we found it. And we bought it and closed last August in McNabb's Cove.
It's like that, when you come to Cape Breton, a lot of people, or people that were meant to stay here, always come back, and they never really want to leave. But you arrived just before the borders closed because of COVID.
So we had already bought the house, not knowing that there was going to be a pandemic. And our plan was to come here in early June and spend 6 months, which is as much as we're allowed to as visitors, then return to Colorado and kind of go back and forth. But as things began to evolve early this year, we changed that plan, and at the very last minute decided to get in the car and literally flee for the border, which we crossed in Manitoba on March 16th. And the following day, the border was closed.
It must be, well, you're a doctor, so you understand how COVID is affecting everybody. But it must be difficult for you because you have children and grandchildren in the U.S.
It's a very difficult situation, but I'm blessed to have children that are very careful and intelligent, not reckless, and very tuned into what's going on. And they do listen to the doctors, and they listen to me, thank God, at least in regard to this issue. And so they're pretty safe.
Yeah, I was also really thinking about how it might be difficult for you to be away from your family and for them to be away from you.
Well, we do a Zoom conference every Sunday afternoon, and that has been wonderful. And they've been so good. So many wonderful things have happened spontaneously in those conferences that we probably will submit it to the public radio to archive, because I think it'll be a record of at least one family's adventure through remote communication. But it's not the same as being able to see them in person and to hug them and play with the grandchildren, and I'm missing out on that, and it's a shame.
Well, let's just hope that things happen real soon that will change all of that. I think we all have hope for that.
Yes.
So in the meantime, you wrote a book about your life and your memoirs, really.
I did.
So what made you decide to work with cancer patients?
Well, I think that as I was doing my training in pediatrics, we rotated through all the different areas of pediatrics. This is before I was even out of medical school. I did a rotation in my junior year of medical school at St. Christopher's Hospital for Children in Philadelphia. And during that rotation, I learned about childhood cancer and blood disorders. And I think it's one of those things where, number one, I'm a visual learner and I'm an artist visually. And when I saw the cells under the microscope of my patients telling me what was wrong with them, there was something strikingly beautiful and also frightening about it at the same time. And I was hooked. That's as far as I can say. Plus, I think I sensed that it was a field where there was a lot to be accomplished and that it would be an opportune time to get in at that time and be part of the process that was going to happen. And that's exactly the way it worked out.
Well, I think that is just commendable. I admire you so much. And to describe it through an artist's eyes, that's something I've never heard anybody say before. I think that it just shows, how people look at things differently. I mean, there have been a lot of strides in cancer, a lot of things that have happened that have been positive, and there are still the negatives, of course, and every one of us are affected. But I have often thought about people in your position that see that every day, and I wonder how you there must be bad days. There have to be bad days.
Yes, there are.
Of course.
But, and my wife and I had worked very closely together in the last few years of my career. She's ran the practice and also has a number of degrees in various aspects of medicine that she was able to use to help me in the practice. And we would go home together, work all day together, go home together, and totally exhausted and many times depressed and even with tears, but saying to each other, it's hard, but we did some good work today. We did some good work today, and we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Well, I can honestly say that I've dealt with doctors who have done good work today in my personal life. And I don't think there are words that would thank people like you enough. I just think you're one of the most courageous, you're courageous people. You must have so much caring in your soul that you just want to keep struggling forward to help people.
I think everybody just finds what they're able to do in this world. And that's why the name of the book is To Be of Use.
Yes, well.
And that isn't restricted to medicine at all. And I don't really feel that what I do is any more important than what many other people do, but don't get as much credit for. If they do it with full commitment and with an understanding of how it affects other people, I think almost every day of the people that are out there during this pandemic doing simple things that don't require necessarily even higher education, but without which we would all be lost and putting themselves at great risk.
Absolutely. And a lot of heroes have come out of this pandemic. I see them all the time. I find myself, just like everyone else, scrolling through social media and seeing some beautiful thing that happened, and just feeling like my faith in humanity has been restored a little bit. Because, you see so many dark things, but it's nice to see the light things and to try to keep a positive outlook on things, I think. And it probably gets a lot of people through. But now, is writing an outlet for you?
It has become that. Before I got close to retirement and realized that I was getting there and it was time to start telling my story while I could, because I think I was lucky enough to live through a period of time in medicine where there's a story that needs to be told. And I wanted to tell it myself. But before that, I was restricted to writing scientific papers, book chapters, things like that, which is okay. And I learned to write in college. I was an English major, and I was an art history minor. And then I managed to squeeze in the courses that were necessary to get into medical school, which is not the usual pathway, but it has allowed me, I think, because when I first started writing in college, I was not the greatest writer in the world, and my professors let me know. And I learned something from that, and now I think I can write competently, and I can tell the story, and it's not painful. It's all there, and it just flows.
You're very well-rounded. That's what I think.
Thank you.
So now you're also writing a second book.
Yes.
And it is called?
A Yankee in Cape Breton.
I can't wait to read that one.
I can't wait to write it. I've actually got myself on a writing discipline, and I'm a pretty undisciplined person. But every day I'm either gathering information for the book or writing it down, which I try to get it written down as quickly as possible because I don't like to use a tape recorder. I just feel it's a barrier between me and whomever I'm talking with. And
right.
So I like to write it as quickly as I can, and then I can come back to it later and fill in.
So is this book available?
Yes, this book is available now through any place really where you can buy a book. So you can get it from Barnes & Noble, Amazon online. Ex Libris is the company that actually publishes it, and I recommend buying it from their library because you'll get it faster that way.
Right.
They do a very nice job of getting books to people when they order them. I've been told by the people that I know that have
right.
ordered the book so far.
Right. Well, if you ever want to leave some here with us, we'd be happy to sell them for you as well.
I'd be happy to.
Well,
Thank you.
We'd love to have them. And I think that I think it kind of would be a very important read for me. I'm very curious about that book. And
What are you curious about?
Well, I'm curious. I'm just curious because I've never actually met a cancer doctor who has an artistic side. And you're also, you play music.
Yes.
I just have never, I don't know why, in my mind, I've always thought serious people, and I just never ever put that together.
You know what, the problem is that in order to practice medicine the way it should be practiced, which is evidence-based, a topic of some current interest in the world.
Definitely.
You have to really use your dominant brain, which is the left side of the brain for most people. So we call those people left-brained. And unfortunately, most of our creativity is on the right side of our brain. It doesn't mean it isn't there. It just means it isn't being accessed, it isn't being used, it isn't even being given permission to express itself. And I started off with the interest in music and art and English literature and so forth, and then with the heavy foot of my father 2 or 3 feet behind me, I agreed to become a physician. And then I actually did become quite interested in the scientific aspect of it, and we started to use my left brain more than I had before. But the other part was always still there. So now that I've got a little bit of time, and even starting before I was ready to retire, about 2009, my wife persuaded me to start painting. I'd always been very interested in looking at paintings and going to museums, but I started to paint. So I've been doing a lot of painting since then, and it's only in the last couple of years that I got to start writing.
You see, it's great to have a supportive spouse.
Yeah, she's been an inspiration.
Your friend and your wife. That is so important to have that support. And I'm sure that your children support you as well. I don't know, I just feel that they might.
I think they do. I think they're a little bit afraid of what I might have said in this book, understandably so, because I told them it's not going to be politically correct.
Right.
There's no point at this time in history writing something that doesn't really tell the truth. So there's a lot of positive things in the book, especially the tributes that I pay to my heroes in medicine, my mentors and my inspirations. And this book has wonderful pictures of them in it and good descriptions where I just spend time talking about the person. That's a good part of the book. There's a lot of humor in it as well. But there's also some rough stuff in here about things that are going on and have gone on in medicine that I take exception to and hope will change, and that's all there too. So you'll get a little bit of everything.
Well, that's what will make it even more interesting.
I hope so.
Oh, I think so. I think so. How long did it take you to write that book?
Surprisingly, about 2 months.
Wow.
It just, once I started, it just came pouring out. And I never kept any journals or notes on anything. So I can't even imagine what it would have been like. But the good news is because I didn't, it's a quite readable size. And you could sit down in a day and read through this. The print is large, the book is large, the pictures are big. And I'm happy about that.
Well, our senior population would enjoy that.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, the thing about Richmond County, for example, it has a very large senior population, one of the largest in Nova Scotia. And, you know, our seniors are pretty close to us. We treat our seniors well because we respect them. And I know that my grandmother, when she started to lose her eyesight, she used to say, "Oh, this print is too small." So I appreciate that. When do you suppose you're going to finish the next book? You wrote that one in 2 months.
It's going to take a little bit longer because I want to be well informed. And as the more I learn about Cape Breton, the more I learn how much I don't know, which is the same thing that happened to me in medicine. It should happen in medicine. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm having such a wonderful time tracking down and meeting the people that have that information. And it's going to be, I've written 10 chapters so far. And I anticipate that it'll be about 20 to 25 chapters.
Well, there are a lot of characters in Cape Breton. A lot of them.
You think?
Oh, I know. I'm pretty sure of it. I remember when I moved away years ago, and I lived in Ontario for a while. And when I was coming home, the person that was driving me home said, "I feel like I'm bringing you home to die." And I said, "No, you're bringing me home to live."
That's wonderful.
and I have never regretted coming back. And I did the same thing. I just packed up one day, and that's it. I'm done. I'm going home now.
Well, I'll tell you a little story that happened just yesterday that's, of course, in my mind right now because of that. But yesterday, I'm Jewish, and yesterday was Yom Kippur, which is the most holy day in the entire Jewish calendar. It's the Day of Atonement, where after 10 days of thought and self-examination, one asks God and one's fellow humans for forgiveness. And then you can forgive yourself as well and then move on with your life on a new footing if it all goes the way it's supposed to. And that also, the tradition is that then you ask God to write you for another year in the book of life. May I live another year. So, but yesterday, because there's no place for me to go to have services for Yom Kippur, and because I'm having a little health problem right now where it wasn't a good idea to fast, which I would normally be doing, I had an appointment to meet with Father George McGinnis up in Big Pond. So I kept the appointment, and I was supposed to be fasting, but I wasn't fasting, so I ate lunch, which was not even close to being kosher. And so here I am on the most sacred of all Jewish holidays, having lunch with a Catholic priest eating non-kosher food. And then he asked me to offer a blessing before we ate, which I did, and then he offered one too. And then I crossed myself, and I said, "I've crossed myself, and please forgive me, God, for having done so." So we had quite a time. We spent 4 hours together, and that will be, I think, just the beginning of the information that we'll be exchanging. So I'm having a wonderful time.
Yeah, how fantastic is that?
Yeah.
That's awesome. What a great story that is.
Just that story will make a chapter by itself, yeah.
Well, yes.
Because it's so unusual.
Yeah, there are a lot of different characters in Cape Breton. there's no end to them. And this community, for example, is French.
I'm very much aware of the Acadians and
Oh,
their
yes.
history, but it's very different to know the history and to actually know the people.
Yes.
So one of the goals of gathering information and trying to write this book is to get enough of a sense of the Acadian people and who they are and their culture and their peculiarities and so forth, that I'll be able to characterize that well in the book.
Well, there are all kinds of people around this area that would be happy to help you, I'm sure. Many people. And I'm pretty sure that Kenneth at the library could probably point you in the right direction, if not help you with that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, because Kenneth is very knowledgeable and a very nice
Excellent.
person. So, I mean, he is probably one of the nicest people I know and one of the most helpful people I know. So other than that, how long do you think you're going to be here?
Well, at least another 6 months, because I know it'll take that long for the government to process our application for extended time here. And then we've requested a year. So we're not in any hurry to leave, and I don't see a departure date coming anytime soon. Of course, a lot will depend on what happens in the U.S. and what happens with the election and what happens with the pandemic. Sooner or later, we'll need to go back.
Well, of course, you have things that you need to take care of.
Right.
I mean, when you left, did you leave everything just behind, or did you just...
We upped and left is essentially what it came down to, and we got advice from an immigration attorney here in Canada that we had already talked to, saying, don't come here looking like you're planning to stay.
Wow.
Just bring what you need.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Or you might have some trouble with customs, and we didn't want to have any. In fact, when I write about that experience in this book, you can almost feel the tension that we felt as we approached the border, knowing that it was about to be closed and that we were coming from the U.S., and are we going to get across that border? And when we did get across the border, we looked at each other and just breathed a sigh of relief, and probably got a little wet in the eye.
Oh, yeah.
Saying we made it, and now we can just get across Canada.
You made it, but you're leaving your country behind.
Yes.
And your grandchildren and your children. What a difficult situation to kind of be in for a minute, that would be difficult.
That was not difficult,
No?
as you might think, other than the issue of my children and grandchildren,
Yeah.
because in my particular case, I'm a student of history and very much a proponent of justice and civil rights, and have always been on that side of the ledger. And all the way back to the early 80s, late 70s, I've been ready to come to Canada. And it just didn't work out for one reason or another. The United States is a wonderful place, but its history has many serious blemishes on it. And if you're very much aware of that, it's painful. It's painful. It can be painful.
Well, I hope you get your extension, and then some.
Thank you.
I think we should keep you here forever, personally, but,
If you send a little letter to the government saying that, we
I'll
would
do that.
appreciate it.
I'll do that. I'll send in a letter of support. Not that it may not make any difference, but I'll try. And I think you belong here.
I think it comes back to the title of the book, to be of use. I think that if we can demonstrate that we are of use to Canada, to Cape Breton in particular, rather than just coming here to take what it has to offer, we'll be able to make a good case that we should be able to remain
So
here.
are you talking about practicing medicine?
That will not be possible.
No. That's unfortunate.
We offered that, but that's not an option for us. And at my age, I don't have many more years to practice medicine. So I think it will be, in my case, possibly as a cultural asset with my writing and my interest in Cape Breton and so forth. And my wife is already working pretty closely with the indigenous population that lives right down the road from us.
That's excellent.
And has formed an alliance with them and a trusting relationship, and has already done a lot of good work with them, and I'm very, very pleased about that. So,
Me too. I am as well. I think that anything that we can do to help the indigenous is a good thing.
it starts off with understanding
Absolutely.
and trust.
Absolutely.
And then you go from there.
But anytime you or your wife would like to come in and do anything, by all means,
Oh, thank you so much.
we're here for you.
Well, I think we will have more to say as we
Yeah.
go forward, and I don't want to be obtrusive and draw attention to myself, because that's not the point. But we do really want to contribute something. So I hope this will be a good start, and then the book about Cape Breton I'm very excited about, and I've already think I have some good stuff, and hoping that will get published.
The nice thing about Cape Breton books is that Cape Bretoners love to read them as well.
Who wouldn't want to read about themselves?
Well, the thing is, we find ourselves funny. So I mean, that we can laugh about each other. That's the great thing. So yeah, I think all of us read about Cape Bretoners, about other Cape Bretoners.
Well, humor is crucial.
Oh, yes.
There's nothing more better than humor, or maybe a dog, to get you through a crisis.
It all depends. In my case, it would be a cat.
Okay.
But it depends on what you like.
Right.
But anyway, you come back anytime you want to.
Well, thank
it
you
was
for
a
having me.
pleasure to meet you, and I'm
The
looking
same.
forward to speaking to you again.
I hope we do.
Excellent.
Thank you.